So someone asked us to take a look at this file. They've photographed this numerous times and then stitched it together, and there's some vignetting, and the white doesn't look right to them. Certainly the white isn't white, it looks kind of yellow. First things first, when you're shooting something like this and you want true color, it's nice to put a color card in the picture, and then you can use that color card to shoot your gray point, or to use your gray point in curves to make sure that your lighting is correct. That is a whole nother issue, but we're just going to take this from the standpoint of how do we get all these white areas all the way around. We're going to assume this is a white paper and not manila paper, and make them actually white. There are two things you can do. One is curves, but curves never really gets it. So if I take curves, for example, I'm going to do the curves first. If I take curves and I select white here, I'm going to tell that this is the white point. It looks white to the eye, but then if we look at our, put me in my own workspace here, and if we then look at the info window, which I use a lot, right? And we look at the RGB value of this white, it's not going to be actually white, white, white. You get the 254, right? You're going to have areas where it's not 100% white, and you're still going to show fall off. Even the slightest bit, it's either going to look like fall off, or it's going to look like gray. So what we can do is use a combination of curves and also select color range. So what we're going to do is select the white range within this whole thing. And we're going to do that by select color range. You can go around the piece and select, using your eyedropper here, the area that you want. Now there are two settings here within select color range. One is fuzziness, meaning how close to the color range that you've selected you want to select, and also the range, which is the area. Right. So generally what you do is hold down your shift key and you're going to go around this and you're going to select all the white, and you can see in your preview window that the flowers are not being selected. You've got white, all the white's being selected, and you've got it. Okay. We can go into quick mask to make sure that we actually got everything, and the red areas are being masked out and the white areas are not being masked out. While in quick mask mode, I'm going to I'm going to erase. I'm particularly interested in the edges, and the reason is that when the edges have any gray or fall off in them at all, it really shows. Whereas when you're between objects, like we see in all these flowers, all these pressed flowers, if there's a little bit of gray in there, once it gets printed, it's really not going to show. What's not going to show up, you're not going to see it as much. So, I'm going to do then is erase any little spots or gunk or color that's being accidentally masked out. You can see that with the red. Okay, so there we've done that. Now, what I want to do next is exit color mask by pressing the Q key again. So the Q gets you in and out of quick mask. Okay, and we're now going to use Command J on the Mac, Control J on the PC to create a new layer from that selection. You can see the layer there in our layer mask, and then we're going to lock the transparency on that layer. Do Shift F5 and fill it with white. And now you have a completely white background and no color fall off. Now we go to our curves layer again. One thing you could do in your curves layer is you can make a little bit of an S curve to get a little bit of saturation back in your colors, and yet still mitigate that white point a little bit. Maybe white's white. And that's that. Now if we zoom into this, we're going to see that our shadows are a little bit patchy because of what we've done with this white layer. And turn the curves back on so that looks. And we really want to soften that up a little bit. So what we can do is we can unlock that transparency on this layer. Now at this point we're using a combination of curves and that fill layer to get us a really, really nice white point that really can't be achieved in any other way. If you try and do it all with curves, a lot of times what you're going to end up with is blown out details, right? And you can see we've lost some detail in the flowers here. So what we have to do is go around a little bit now and do a little bit of manual work in areas where there's there's white and things that we want to keep. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go here and I'm going to, using the eraser tool, once again this transparency lock has to be off in order to erase now, in order to work in it, and clean up some of those areas. And here you can erase away a little bit some of the heavy shadows. You can use your eraser tool right in here to just soften that edge, and what we're doing is softening the difference between the curve layer that we've created and that white layer that we've created. So you can see we're cleaning up. Those shadows look fine. What you're going to do is find some of the big ones that see have looked, now they look a little spotty. Just very quickly running around with the eraser tool and taking care of some of that so that it looks better. Same here. I want to soften up that shadow like that. Okay. Now I'm using a pen on a walk-on pad. That probably helps. So if you're doing this with the mouse, this might be a little bit slower and less judicious. But see, we've kind of lost that one little shadow right there. I'm going to bring them back. Okay. Now, if you're not worried about the background being just perfect, then you can actually achieve this just with the curves. But when you're doing prints of something like this, and you want that background really to be perfect, we found that this gets us where we want to be. This is the best way to do this. Here's a really great example of where we've selected that white point and we have this flower, and the flower has a lot of white in it. So we're going to go back in and erase some of this white layer and just use the curve function that we've done so that we don't lose detail in the flowers that have white areas. See, we're going to take care of that white area. Seems like a lot of work, but if it's your artwork and you're going to be selling these prints, then it's worth the extra time. Let's see if I can find some other ones. There's another flower like that. It had a lot of white in it, right? So we're going to go fix some of the things that got accidentally selected and blown out a little bit. Maybe in there. Right? So those yellow veins, we want those back. Here's another good example of we just want to soften that shadow. So what I'm doing is erasing here. Just erase on this layer that has a white fill on it, so that we're keeping the areas that we want and getting rid of the areas that we don't want, but that you can see how this kind of thing gets easily lost. See, you've kind of got at that point white on white. Okay. So that about covers that, I think. So I think we've done the shadows there. Those look good. Softened up the areas that we want to soften up. Right. That looks great. Here's another last flower that is white on white. We're going to bring that detail back by erasing out that white layer in the areas where we don't want it again. There we go. This little guy could have used a little more detail. Brought him back. Put that back. And that looks good. When you're erasing like this, you can change the opacity of your eraser as you're working by using the numbers on your keyboard, anywhere from 0 to 1. 1 gives you 10% opacity on your eraser, 3 30%, 0 is 100%. And so sometimes when you're seeing me erase like this, it seems like I've got a very soft touch. Sometimes what's happening is I'm using the keyboard here to change the opacity of my eraser, so I'm not at 100%. I'm just very lightly hitting areas where I want to make changes. There we go. Da, 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 da. Right there. See, I want that. See, I actually want that shadow back. Right, so I've erased back into that. Want that back. Want that back. Okay. There are really only a few of those throughout the whole piece. You could probably, if it was my own piece, I could maybe spend up to an hour doing this maybe for a really nice piece to get it just absolutely perfect. But this isn't my piece, so I'm not going to spend an hour doing that. But see, there's another nice little shadow I want softened up. The lighting was pretty good on this to begin with, so you could have actually done quite a bit just using the curves layer. But one thing that the curves layer won't take care of is the texture in the paper that's coming through here all throughout the piece, whereas when you do the white fill, you can see that texture goes away. That really is it. Now the last thing is, if I wanted this paper to be an off-white color at this point, now that I've cleaned up all the edges, I can go in here and I can create a new layer. I'm going to call this Manila. Okay. And I'm going to fill that layer with, not white, but with a very, very soft yellowish Manila. Okay. And then I'm going to change that to multiply. And that gives me that. So you can do either of those two things. Those are the things I could do to make this a little better. Maybe shoot it around f8. Narrow your aperture there so you have a little bit more depth. Use your curves to fix your white, and also to provide a little S curve to add a little bit more color and depth, or I should say saturation. The fill layer here, which cleans up everything and makes everything even. And I would say lastly, if you want to muck with the color in your flowers and try and bring back some of the yellow, for example, yellow is the one thing that gets lost the fastest in photography and in painting. You can go into selective color, grab those yellows and throw a little bit more yellow back into them. You see it better if I have that Manila layer turned off. And in the magentas, maybe I could go in here into the magentas and add a little bit more magenta. That's really kind of all I would do to this for colors. Maybe green, make your greens pop a little bit more. And that's about it. those are things I could do to improve on this and make it print ready. I guess one last thing would be, there are some spots left. The spots that are left, these little spots all over the place, what you can do is you can take a white brush and then go into this white fill layer and then just run around where you see some of these that bug you and just sort of brush them out. Some of these black dots that could be like poppy seeds or anything like that. And clean that up. A couple of these here and there. Or maybe they don't bother you. Maybe they look okay there to you and you think they're fine. Some of them are fine. Some of them might be okay, some of them might not. Up to you. Run around and clean those up. Those can be done on the white layer, whereas that's really hard to do before you've created that white layer, because you can't just go erase on a dirty background. What you end up with is an artifact that's left over from doing that. Whereas here you don't have artifacts. So you do really white on white. And once you've done that to the white layer, you've cleaned up these spots on the white layer like that. If you do a manila layer on top of that, these, show you an example. Let's get rid of that one right there. But then we turn the manila layer on, and you don't have any artifacting around the work that you've just done. So that's nice. That, I think, is about it. I'm going to erase this one. Just clean up that shadow just a little bit right there. That's kind of it. Done.